I nearly wore that sweatshirt today.
Do you know what? I was actually hoping that you would, but I also love what you're wearing now.
Well, it's a great way to start a podcast, isn't it?
Yeah. It's going to happen soon. We've got so many of the same clothes.
Well, you had your incredible sparkly Fuck Ice t-shirt on for recording last week.
Yeah, you got to wear something political.
Yeah, we've nearly worn the same sweatshirt into recording today, and I'm wearing my Irish Republic football shirt from Davey Holden. So Davey Holden is an amazing person to follow on Instagram if you're interested in Irish history. And he made this amazing commemorative shirt for the uprising that I want to be talking to you about today, Tommy. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, how are you?
Oh my God. So it's a lot right now. And I will say it's a lot right now having a goth business. Just want to just start there because as we've seen sort of, the worldwide sort of shift to the right, just noticing how that shows up in our communities has been wild. Won't talk about this much, but I do just want to say a month ago, there was quite a well-known female influencer that was sort of outed for comments that she'd made on very sort of pro-Trump content, got outed, denied it, but it was everywhere and everyone's still following her. So that happened a month ago. And just a couple of days ago, a sort of predator was outed in the sort of LA spooky community. And if you know one thing about my brand, there is no Tommy Vowles without the LA Latinx spooky community. They are, when I tell you, like every other order is a Lopez or a Rodriguez, and they are literally like the most gorgeous, glamorous babes you could imagine. So for me, this is really huge. It's somebody that I worked with, and I'm like just seeing these women come out right after the Epstein files were dropped has been wild.
Yeah, I do feel like, obviously, I mean, I'm not going to say the Epstein files are a moment. It minimizes like so much, but like it is a moment. It's a moment for feminism. It's a moment for the conversation around matriarchy. I think there's been a lot of people understanding that when we see this harm being perpetuated by these powerful people, it will remind a lot of people of the harm that we absolutely know is being perpetuated in kind of smaller scenes, subcultures, communities, and being prepared to be brave and call it out. Prince Andrew got arrested.
I know. Oh my God, that photograph of him in the cab. Have you seen people like reenacting the photograph?
I've seen people put it in the Louvre.
Oh my God. Have you seen the commemorative plate?
The commemorative plates have sent me just because we're so used to seeing all of that kind of royal tat.
Yeah.
So that haggard, slightly frightened, papped in the back of the car photo that's been circulating, I think has brought us some joy. It's brought me some joy, and I also love that they arrested him on his birthday.
Yeah, I fucking love it.
Like, never underestimate just how spiteful British people can be.
Yeah, but he's not been arrested because of his connection to the sexual assault allegations. Like, I don't know where this is going to go. Very worried.
Impropriety in office, is not really the charge that we want, but it is a start, and that they hadn't arrested a member of the royal family, the British royal family, for 400 years. So I'm absolutely not mad about it, but I think we also need to give Virginia Giuffre her fucking flowers.
Yes.
Virginia Giuffre, who blew the whistle, who talked about being abused by Andrew in connection with Epstein, who said, if anything ever happens to me, I'm not suicidal, I don't want to die. Was in a horrific car accident, survived, repeated the fact that she was not suicidal and did not want to die, and then, oh no, she's killed herself.
Yeah.
So again, tinfoil hat milliners. I don't want to get too carried away with any of the old conspiracy theories, but they killed Diana.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's only episode 4.
Oh my God. Well, the thing is, if there just keeps being so many terrible things to talk about,
Yeah. I thought it might be quite nice for us at the top today to also talk about what we've been excited about. So I've definitely been excited about them arresting Andrew and everybody taking the piss, but we know that it isn't enough. But is there anything happening that's kind of got you smiling? Talk to me about the ring, because obviously it's made by a very dear friend of ours.
Yes, so this ring, it's a silver sort of. Is it a rhombus? Would you say that's a rhombus?
It's a coffin. It's a clear cut coffin.
No, I mean it's a clear cut coffin in a rhombus.
Okay. I don't even know. I wouldn't know a rhombus if it jumped up and bit me in the butt. Okay.
And it's got the sign of Jupiter carved into it. Obviously, expansion, rules Sagittarius, like big into Jupiter. And sort of on the underneath part, there's an eye open and an eye shut. And it's by our super talented friend, Smith & Son, who also made this insane necklace and all of Hannah's jewellery.
Including my wedding ring.
Oh my God,
so
yes.
Definitely. Tara has a shop now in Margate, at the Stella, and is also hosting kind of workshops, and Say has the queer library and archive in the basement. Like, those two are just so creative.
Just magical people.
Magical people. So yeah, that's something that's been making us smile, right? Magical people.
Making magical things.
I think of that quote, you know, all of my friends are still doing beautiful things. And I've also had an opportunity, like I hosted a couple of cult catch-ups, and yeah, I always find it so inspiring hearing from people about kind of the things that they're doing and where they're going and the lives that we are all still living. You know, like this is our time. We're not going to get another run at it. So when I say don't let the bastards grind you down,
it just feels like this very delicate balancing act of engaging in the horrors, but also, you know, propping people up and enjoying the love of the wonderful friends that we have, the creativity that we have. Like, that's also important, and sometimes it is easy to forget just in the midst of all of it.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, like, joy is resistance. It's not the only form of resistance.
Yeah, no, I've seen quite a lot of... There's definitely been people using that phrase who have not done anything else in resistance. You know, definitely seen a bit of that. But joy absolutely is resistance, yes.
Yeah, love and light is for beginners, right?
Yes.
So, well... I'm delighted that we're still here for episode 4, because let's face it, kind of consistency, discipline, not strong points for us. I kind of assumed with us being the neurodivergent chaos goblins that we are, you know, we might already have taken this in a different direction or done something with it, but everyone's kind of enjoying us just showing up.
Yeah.
And having a chat, and we got some really, really good feedback on like the last couple of episodes. So I wanted to share this one with you, especially Tommy. So the Professional Widow says, "Oh my word, I still have my Slimelight membership card from the 90s, early 2000s. I also remember Camden and Kensington Market, and I bought or was made to buy a crappy corset from Glitters."
I wonder if I sold it to you.
Like, seriously, I was like...
Was it a very tall, skinny goth man with massive black hair, in which case it was me? Or it could have been my Larry mate, Lily.
Yeah. Oh, Lily. We love Lily. So thank you for that one. Ha 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 ha, memories indeed. And also some feedback we had over email from someone who submitted a question for our last episode, our attempt at kind of agony gunkling. I've not felt seen in a long time, so very big cheers for that.
Oh.
It's hard, but really great to be listening in to a community that gets the messy and isn't afraid of it.
That's the thing. I think last time, I found that quite difficult. I don't think I sort of came in the best of moods. And, you know, like, it was, some of those questions were just about things that were really difficult, and it was a little bit difficult to sort of access the part of me that was able to answer in the best way. So I'm really happy that it resonated.
Yeah, I think that's why it does resonate right now, you know? Like, I know I keep harping on about it, but we... I think are in a unique position here, both of us, to work on some of the perfectionism that's been a problem for us.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've also both been so busy that last episode we've not had a chance to like tell people it's out there yet. So how is that
No.
going in terms of of listening?
Terrible.
And all that? Of course, yeah.
Terrible. Yeah, we had like, I think about 500 people listen to the first episode and only about 35 people have listened to the last episode. And I think the reason that's tough for us is it sends us into a little bit of a spiral, right? Because we're like, right, when we're going to do this our way, we're going to put it in Patreon. We're not going to direct people to Apple or Spotify right now. It just doesn't feel right or sit well with us. But it's very, very hard to create an audience or drive momentum behind a podcast without putting it in all the places that people usually listen to podcasts. So we've been a little bit dependent, of course, on our social media, which we've built essentially behind kind of our brands or our businesses, to kind of tell people that we have a podcast. We obviously know that didn't go so well. We've both now been shadow banned by Instagram. But then, of course, it's like I said, it's that kind of wider knock-on effect for us of like, oh, it is hard to make and create something and put it out there and then it be difficult to get people's eyes on it or to let them know that, you know, it's a labor of love for us, this, ultimately. Right?
Definitely.
I'm delighted if 35 people listened to that episode and connected with it and said, you know, hey, it's so great to be listening in to people that get the messy and aren't afraid of it. That's exactly what we wanted to do with this.
100%. And I mean, look, you and I are both people that sort of built our brands on a very sort of fuck around and find out ethos. So we'll work it out. You know, we always do.
DIY. And we do want to get some video going. We are both gorgeous.
Yes.
So we're going to get some video going. I think we'll probably put videos on YouTube. But I want to thank everyone who has really got behind us with the whole, we've put our podcast on Patreon.
Yeah.
Because we have got 64 people signed up to the Patreon.
I love
it. Do want to know when we're dropping new episodes, and 14 of them now are paying members. So I need to give a shout out to Kaz and to Paige for getting signed up to the Patreon, buying us coffees and donuts and the occasional
thanks,
Club
Kaz and
Martyr.
Paige.
Did you like that I made the first tier on our Patreon, the Club Martyr tier?
I did. I mean, it just speaks to our sort of geographical locations, you know.
The way we met, drinking Club Martyrs. Yeah. If you don't know, Club Martyr is like a caffeinated tea drink.
Yeah.
It's super popular in Germany. Is it imported to Germany from like Latin America though?
I would think so, just in terms of the branding, because it's very much sort of got that vibe, doesn't it? But I don't know. I just
as if
know.
the Germans wouldn't be bang up for a bit of cultural appropriation.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's what I do know is that it's sort of turns into a very supercharged alcoholic drink when mixed with vodka.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, obviously, the Club Martyr in and of itself will put a rocket up you. I used to have those in the morning instead of a cup of coffee, but obviously, if what we used to do in the club, as if you and I were ever really in the club in our lives, in the shell of some abandoned building, right, where the walls are wet and, you know, you have to go out the back and pee in a hole. Those are the kind of places I was partying a lot in Berlin. But anyway, you could go to the bar, which, let's face it, wasn't a bar. It was just a stack of crates. And you could get a turbo martyr where you had to drink as much of the Club Martyr as you could.
As quickly as possible, while the bar person was really annoyed because they just wanted to put your shot of vodka in there. But you drink it right the way down, so they felt obliged to go.
Yeah,
to
it's like
we're
going to crack the top of the bottle. You're going to drink down enough that I can fill it with vodka, and obviously you and I would drink 3/4 of the bottle and then just hand it back with a big old grin on our faces. And I think at one point, I think the entrepreneurial alcoholic in me thought about trying to import Club Martyr to the UK, because obviously UK binge drinking culture, I can imagine in the summer, like pitchers or jugs of Turbo Martyr.
Well, the thing is also, I know sort of like in alternative subcultures, I feel like people think that Berlin's really cool. Like, I know that in New York, there's like a club called Das Bunker, and somewhere else there's one called Berlin. Like, I think it's sort of, you know, there's this sort of cool factor for people outside of Berlin. I know I had it before I moved here and realized it wasn't quite as cool as all that. But yeah.
Are we about to do an episode about how Berlin isn't cool anymore, or should we save that? Because that is a conversation I'm ready to have. Because I don't think Berlin was cool anymore.
Oh, I'm so ready for that.
Like...
yeah. Well, I'd agree.
No, it's tough. I mean, I think it's one of those cities, like you said, that people have always held up for its culture of resistance and its culture of rebellion. And I mean, you grew up in London. That city at a time was also synonymous with that, and we don't have that anymore. Or it's harder for us to find.
Yeah, I would completely agree with you. But also, as I said last time, we do have the biggest sort of diaspora of Palestinians here. And just the resistance has just been like, I mean, the things that this government has done and how they've supported that genocide is obviously horrendous. And oh my God, with the Berlinale and just the absolute cowardice of those that run it, those that were on that panel. I mean, Matt Bernstein, I have talked about Matt Bernstein in every single episode so far, at least once, but he's put out a YouTube video where he talks about sort of celebrity culture and the cowardice with this genocide and sort of focused it around what's happened at the Berlinale. And it is honestly a piece of art and everyone should watch it.
Yeah, and here's the thing. We're reminded, aren't we, through this, that celebrities and celebrity culture is a tool of our oppression. Being distracted, like believing that all you've got to do is pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you can be the next Beyonce. Bullshit. But again, what a thing for us to have to come to terms with. Born in the 80s, growing up in the 90s, our parents were boomers. It's a lot, but we decided, because it's a lot, we try and focus on something positive today. And the working title of this episode, I think, is Revolutionaries and Riots, Rebellions and Riots, just, because for a long time, I've been thinking about, how can we carry on the legacy of those who have already done so much work and have already fought so hard, because it's because of them we can't afford to be too nihilistic or complacent or just throw in the towel right now. So Tommy, when we talk riots and revolutionaries, what did you want to bring to the pod today?
I'm really excited about this, okay, because there was a couple of topics that I wanted to talk about, right? And I have had a lot going on recently. I've been quite stressed. So this morning, I felt like I got a little bit of a taste of what it's like to be cult mother before a deep dive. So I was pulling sources from all over the place because these are things that I can speak on. These are things that I know about, but I just needed to get my thoughts in order and also just, get some quotes together. So I was rushing up until the last minute to get all of this together for you. I've written 2 pieces about 2 different people. Would you like me to start?
Absolutely. Take it away.
Okay. I initially intended to write about the life of Marsha P. Johnson, a legendary trans elder whose impact on our community is immeasurable. However, as I began, I found her history so layered and the existing accounts so contradictory that I felt I couldn't quite do the story justice. Instead, I've chosen to highlight someone whose career I have championed from the start, an activist and queen who is finally receiving her flowers, Miss Munroe Bergdorf.
From Marsha P to Munroe B.
I knew you'd love this. I mean, you know how I feel about this woman.
Didn't you get invited to the film premiere in London by Munroe Bergdorf?
I did. So her people actually emailed me and invited me to the premiere, and it was honestly just like, I think there's points in my career this far that like have been a bit of a moment for me, but that's one that I look back on and I'm just like, just to have been invited is so huge for me. I don't know how I was on their radar. We are sort of very different in terms of fashion and stuff like that, so I don't know how that happened, but it was a moment just to be invited.
But you didn't go.
It was literally, they wrote me a week before and I had something else on that weekend and I was just absolutely gutted because the film is just incredible. I unfortunately didn't get to go, but the fact that I was invited has made my entire life.
Yeah, amazing.
Munroe is a black trans woman who grew up in a white conservative area of Essex under the shadow of Section 28. As someone who also grew up under that law, I can attest to how insidious it truly was. Much like the Don't Say Gay bill in Florida, it prohibited teachers from discussing LGBTQ plus issues, leaving students like Munroe and myself vulnerable to bullying without any institutional protections. So after transitioning at 24, Munroe became a staple of London's nightlife. before making history as the first trans woman to front a L'Oreal Paris UK campaign. I mean, can you imagine how huge that is? It was such an iconic moment in our history. It was a monumental step for diversity, but the triumph was short-lived. Following her public denunciation of white supremacy after the 2017 Charlottesville riots, the Daily Mail framed her words as anti-white. L'Oreal dropped her almost immediately, leaving her to face a wave of death threats without any support, at a time she describes as being thrown to the wolves. I mean, can you imagine? So the story came full circle in 2020 following the murder of George Floyd. L'Oreal posted a statement of solidarity with the black community. Munroe immediately called out the hypocrisy, reminding the world that they had fired her for saying the exact same things years earlier. This led to a direct apology from the brand's president, Delphine Vigour, and Munroe was then appointed to their Diversity and Inclusion Advisory Board. She used this leverage to secure €50,000 in donation for UK Black Pride and Mermaids, which is a charity for trans children. By choosing accountability and progress over cancellation, Munroe forced a global corporation to reckon with systemic racism. She has since told her full story in the documentary Love and Rage, which we spoke about before. She continues to use her platform to drive real change, and she will always be my personal queen.
Iconic. Diva.
Just an icon.
Totally.
The diva, the moment. I wanted to sort of just personally give my flowers to somebody that's been such a huge inspiration for me, not just from all the activism. There's also the fashion. Just is somebody that I've followed on social media forever, used to see around London, in gay clubs, and he's just somebody that's just such an icon to me. I've written something else about somebody that is a more negative person, but I would be happy for you to go first and me jump in later.
Oh yeah, I love that. Let's do that to break it up a bit, because I'm taking us somewhere entirely different. I'm going back to one of my favorite topics of all time. I think my mastermind specialist topic would obviously either be Taro or the Easter Uprising in Ireland in 1916. So if you are a cult member, I've already covered this for the cult. But I want to revisit it now because it always puts the wind kind of back in my revolutionary sails. And let's face it, they're tattered and fucking blowing in the wind right now. So if you don't have a favorite uprising, I would encourage you to kind of figure out which one is yours. It's really interesting for us to kind of get underneath the layers of the history that has been predominantly written by the winners as well, right? I mistrust everything I was taught in school, especially as a British kid. I didn't learn anything about empire or colonialism, and I can obviously now understand that that was completely deliberate. But I, as a kid, moved from the south coast of England to the south coast of Ireland. So I'm not Irish, I'm British, but I was living in Cork, which is known as the Rebel County. I was kind of in the school system there, and I learned a lot of Irish history, Irish language, Irish mythology. I even did some Irish dancing, and I'm only glad there aren't any videos. I'm so glad there are no videos of me.
I'm not
flinging these limbs. And every now and again, if I've had a pint, I'm still convinced that I am Michael Flatley in Riverdance. So
yeah.
Okay, so because we didn't learn about British colonialism, let's start there. It is statistically accurate that more nations hold official, unique national independence days from Britain, roughly 65 countries, than any other power, creating an Independence Day for a former British colony roughly every 6 to 7 days. This makes celebrating independence from British rule one of the most widely celebrated national non-religious holidays globally. So in 1801, Ireland was formally kind of incorporated into the United Kingdom. To date, there are only 22 countries that haven't been invaded by Britain. At its terrible territorial peak in 1920, the British controlled more than 26% of the Earth's land, and the Empire had a population of over 449 million people. The UK has held over 120 colonies throughout its history, with the French colonial empire coming a close second with 80 colonies.
Wow.
Isn't it fucking crazy that as British kids, we did not learn
Insane.
anything about this? I studied double option history, where you basically did 2 humanities subjects instead of the 1 GCSE. And so I did like some intense kind of history at school. I learned all about America and the American Civil War and the eradication of the indigenous Americans. Never learned that the UK has held over 120 colonies in its horrible, violent, bloody history.
I can remember doing lots of sort of like quite romanticized history about like the Normans and Celts and stuff like that, and like finding that very interesting. But a lot of this more sort of like, you know, colonial stuff, I don't remember covering that at all.
It's because they didn't.
Yeah.
I was like, was that a day I was bunking off, right? Trying to get fingered behind the bike sheds? No. They never fucking... I was always trying to be good at school, actually. Let's face it. Okay, so British colonial violence, of course, in Ireland was pervasive. It's insidious. It's multifaceted. So colonial violence, of course, not limited to traditional warfare. We see the kind of systematic efforts of suppressing Irish identity, language. There's a lot of economic exploitation and different kinds of social control. Widespread, oppressive and systemic violence. There's essentially always going to be consequences in a British colony for anyone who dares to challenge the crown. We are still feeling the effects, of course, of this in Ireland today. So I used to live in Belfast, in the north of Ireland. I don't live there anymore because I had to move. Story for another time. But obviously in Belfast, they're still under British rule. And people are very proudly British in Belfast. So they fly their Union Jacks from every fucking lamppost. And these days, disturbingly, those flags are often accompanied by the Israeli flag. Essentially, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Because wherever the Irish tricolour or tricolour is flown, it's accompanied by a Palestinian flag. Because the Irish understand the struggle of the Palestinians.
The Irish don't fuck about.
No, which this story is absolute testament to. So obviously we know that British policies have long kind of promoted sectarianism and division between Catholics and Protestants in Ireland. We've got kind of long-lasting social and political tensions in the north of Ireland that were created there and that still run really deep. So the conflict in the north of Ireland that happened between 1968 and 98 is often referred to as the Troubles, which I think is a little bit of an understatement because it minimises the violence. During this period of time, paramilitary groups, including the Irish Republican Army, or IRA, and loyalist organisations, which of course includes the British forces, engaged in a conflict that resulted in the deaths and injuries of thousands of people. And a particularly brutal example of British violence was the Bloody Sunday massacre in Derry, where British soldiers killed 14 unarmed civilians during a civil rights march. And that was only 1972. In Derry, a 45-minute drive from where I am now, over the border, in the part of Ireland still occupied by the British, innocent civilians were gunned down by the British Army. And there is still no justice, because there is no British justice. On the 18th of April, 2019, writer and journalist Lyra McKee was shot dead in Derry. Lyra was born in Belfast and grew up to write for several publications about the consequences of the Troubles. She wrote Suicide of the Ceasefire Babies, an article on teenage suicides linked to the conflict. And at the time of her death, she was researching unresolved killings that had happened during the Troubles. She gave a TEDx talk called How Uncomfortable Conversations Can Save Lives, which reflected on the 2016 Orlando nightclub shooting in America. So McKee's a queer woman who moved to Derry to be with her partner, who was a nurse there. She was planning to propose and had purchased an engagement ring.
Oh.
It's devastating.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Lyra McKee should be alive today. I really wish that I could have met her or listened to her speak, because I think her voice was so needed and really belonged to the north of Ireland. When the police went out on their raids that day in 2019, it was ahead of a parade. And the parade was intended to commemorate the Easter Rising of 1916. So I'm going to tell you all about the Erie Amach na Casca, the uprising that happened here during that time. So it was the collapse of a short-lived rebellion in 1848 that led to the formation of the IRB, or the Republican Brotherhood. They organised into circles. So a circle was a regiment which had a centre, the equivalent of a colonel, and he chose 9 captains, who in turn chose 9 sergeants, who in their turn would have their soldiers. And so the idea here is that we're organising in a way that protects the identity of the instigators, the organisers, the people in the middle. Take notes. Let's learn from this. I kind of feel like that would be a really good coven structure. It's almost like when you think about being initiated into kind of magical orders and things as well, you know, it's definitely more scary. But the idea of like organising in circles of protection, just kind of really resonated with me here. This group basically believed that Ireland had a natural right to independence, but that right could only be won through armed revolution. They believed that common people were the rightful rulers of their own destiny. And obviously these were people that were feared by the political elite. The Irish Volunteers and Irish Citizen Army would go into action as the Army of the Irish Republic on the morning of April 24th. Around 1,200 people in different locations across Dublin tried to take control of the city, including the all-female Cumann na Ban, or the Women's Council. And on one of the armbands on this commemorative jersey that I'm wearing, that Davy Holden made, is for the Cumann na Ban, the band of women rebels who were really integral to this day and to this uprising.
I just love that.
I know, right? Me too. It's part of just one reason why it's one of my favourite risings.
Just say, you know, uprising of angry women. I'm there.
Yeah, honestly, I love that meme that went around that was like, isn't it great that we've all still got our combat pants from the 90s?
What, those ones with all the strings on them?
Yeah, like we've all got, we've all had the obligatory kind of cargo camo. It was like, was it All Saints in the UK that kind of popularised that look at one point? So we're ready.
And
ladies.
Bewitched in Ireland. Bewitched.
Bewitched. Oh my God! Don't even.
Some
get me
people
started.
say I look like my dad.
I'm trying to think. Was it Say You Will, Say You Will?
Yeah.
Say you, if you want some good music that's come out of Ireland, you can't go far wrong with Sinead O'Connor. So talking about icons, revolutionaries, rebels, right? Like Sinead, are we ready to talk about how far, like before her time, Sinead O'Connor was?
Oh my God, yeah.
Sinead O'Connor calling out rampant child abuse, child sexual abuse, ripping up a photo of the Pope, because let's face it, we've had to have a long look at the Catholic Church long before the Epstein files. You know, being on the receiving end of all the vitriol and all the hatred, you know, you were talking about Munroe there. And being able to transmute that and work with that and somehow just emerge even more powerful.
And I mean, a shaved head in that time, you know, long before the Britney moment, you know, like just an absolute icon in her own right.
Icon. We miss you, Sinead, and you should still be here. I think you'd be pretty excited about Prince Andrew getting arrested. Again, we know it's not enough, but it is a start. So the rebels decided that they were going to try and hold Dublin city centre, but they're essentially surrounded by British Army barracks. But as the group kind of positioned itself to defend these barracks, they evacuated all the civilians and kind of pushed all the policemen out or took them hostage. So they're locking the windows, strategically trying to take streets that would block British forces. And around 400 volunteers, led by James Connolly, Patrick Pearce, Tom Clark, Sean McDiarmada and Joseph Plunkett, marched to the General Post Office, or the GPO. So this is a building that is still in the centre of Dublin. It is the post op. You can go there and touch the bullet holes in the facade that remain there to this day. I can't ever do that without bawling my eyes out. I find it really emotional. So if you ever get a chance to visit Dublin and to connect with a little bit of this history, I absolutely, of course, encourage. We've got to go, babe. I have to take you to Dublin.
Yeah, I'd love to go.
Have you ever been to Dublin?
I've been to the Dublin airport.
The energy I have today comes from learning about stories like this when I was younger. So essentially, once these rebels, the volunteers, have kind of taken these strategic points around Dublin, and they've occupied the General Post Office right in the middle of the city centre, they stand out on the steps in Dublin's main thoroughfare and they read the proclamation of Irish independence from underneath two Republican flags that they hoisted. So the Poblacht na Oran, or the Provisional Government of the Irish Republic, it's this statement that I really wanted to read because I think it's beautiful. I'll let people find it. I'll put it in the show notes. I'm not going to read it all aloud, but it was signed by this provisional government: Thomas J. Clarke, Sean McDiarmid, P.H. Hurst, James Connolly, Thomas McDonough, Eamon Ceant, and Joseph Plunkett. So they're essentially kind of the team that are heading up this uprising, and the GPO is the strategic kind of rebel headquarters at this point. They managed to take over a wireless telegraph station, boldly putting out a broadcast to people in Morse code, letting them know what was going on. They declared an Irish republic. The rebels also attempted to cut telephone and telegraph wires, and they took control of various bridges and roadblocks. So to say that this attempt is audacious is a fucking understatement. They even attempted to occupy Dublin's City Hall and attempted to seize Dublin Castle, which was basically the beating heart of British rule in Ireland during that time. They overpowered the guard room, shooting dead a police sentry, and the British Army's chief intelligence officer began firing on the rebels whilst they shut the castle gate. So by this point, fierce fighting has erupted, and Sean Connolly was shot dead by a sniper, so he was the first rebel leader to become a casualty. By the following morning, the rebels had lost control of City Hall to the British, who had taken prisoners. The British had been completely unprepared, though, for this rising, and their day one response was disorganised. Heavy fire was exchanged, and of course, civilians began getting caught up in the violence too. They were kind of indiscriminately killing civilians at that point. There's a British soldier on record of saying that they essentially just shot anything that moved. It would have been absolute chaos. Patrick Pearse that afternoon walked out onto O'Connell Street and read a manifesto to the citizens of Dublin calling on the people to support the rising. The rebels were unable to take control of either of Dublin's two main train stations or either of its ports, so during the following week the British brought in reinforcements. And by the end of the week they had 16,000 men on the streets, and by Wednesday morning British troops had forced their first rebel surrender. So Sean Houston, along with 26 volunteers, had taken a really important location and they put up some stiff resistance, but ultimately they did surrender. They were only supposed to hold that position. Houston was supposed to hold his position for a few hours, just to delay the British, and they held on for 3 days. And at this point, of course, the fighting has intensified again. 17 rebels were able to seriously disrupt the British advance, killing or wounding 240 soldiers. It took nearly 9 hours for the British to advance 270 metres. We love to hear it. Other rebel positions also inflicted heavy losses on the British, and enraged troops broke into houses, and as I said, they're just shooting and bayoneting civilians at this point. The rebels do surrender to the British. The General Post Office was forced to evacuate after days of being shelled. Connolly had taken a bullet to the ankle, so passed command to Pearse. And on the eve of the surrender, 35 women remained in the General Post Office, and in the final group that left with Pearse and Connolly, there were 3: Winifred Carney, Elizabeth O'Farrell, and Julia Grennan. The surrender document read, "In order to prevent the further slaughter of Dublin citizens in the hope of saving the lives of our followers, now surrounded and hopelessly outnumbered, the members of the provisional government present at headquarters have agreed to an unconditional surrender, and the commandants of the various districts in the city and county will order their commands to lay down arms." Other rebel posts surrendered only after Pearse's surrender, with sporadic fighting continuing into the Sunday. and all the homes of the rebels were raided after the rising. In the aftermath, 3,430 men and 79 women were arrested, and a series of court-martials began where 187 people were tried. These hearings were held in secret, with no defence, and even Crown law later ruled that these hearings were illegal. Because most of the people who conducted them were members of the British military. So we can imagine that they were quite biased. So most of these cases these trials lasted about 20 minutes. Only one woman was sentenced in this way. One Constance Markovich, who is famously quoted as saying, "Dress suitably in short skirts and strong boots. Leave your jewels in the bank and buy a revolver."
Incredible.
Right, icon. At her hearing, she said, "I went out to fight for Ireland's freedom, and it does not matter what happens to me. I did what I thought was right." Getting tearful. Okay, she was sentenced to death, and the only reason that the death sentence was commuted to life was because she was a woman. But when she was told that, she said, "I do wish your lot had the decency to shoot me."
Wow.
I know. So 90 people were sentenced to death, and 15 of those people had their sentences confirmed. Most executions took place over a 10-day period in May. On the 3rd of May, the British shot Patrick Pearse, Thomas MacDonagh, and Thomas Clark. On the 4th of May, they killed Joseph Plunkett, William Pearce, Edward Daly, and Michael O'Hanrahan. On the 5th, they killed John McBride. On the 8th of May, it was the turn of Eamon Cant, Michael Mallin, Sean Houston, and Con Colbert. On the 12th of May, James Connolly and Sean McDiarmada faced the firing squad, and because he was injured, they strapped Connolly to a chair. Thomas Kent was executed by firing squad in a Cork detention barracks, and Roger Casement was hanged in Pentonville prison in London. Unsurprisingly, as a result, anti-English sentiment really began to spread because hundreds of families were affected by these arrests, and as the discontent grew and the rest of the death sentences, these people were set to be executed, they commuted them to penal servitude, essentially. Anybody who ever stands up against any kind of British atrocity is going to be sent away, sent to a different country. It's one way of trying to neutralise the problem. But in April 1917, a broad political movement formed under the banner of Sinn Féin. They drew directly upon the rising, and their popularity was directly accredited to that association. The British had blamed them for the rising, calling it the Sinn Féin Rebellion, which did them no harm at all when it came to a general election in 1918. It's just not that long ago.
No, it's really not.
It's really not that long ago. In October of that year, Sinn Féin won by a landslide in what would be the last election before Irish independence. They vowed in their manifesto that they would create an independent Irish republic. Newly elected MPs refused to attend Westminster and instead formed their own parliament in Dublin, the first Dáil Éireann, or Assembly of Ireland. Of course, the Irish War of Independence was conducted under this revolutionary army. Sinn Féin would become closely aligned with the Irish Republican Army, or IRA, who sought to continue the IRB's legacy by waging armed conflict against occupying British forces. There's definitely parallels to be drawn between the IRA and Hamas. We're going to be on a government watch list by the end of this year. That's my goal for this podcast. I don't know about you. I don't know how you feel about that. Yeah!
I'm down.
Government watch list! I hope
you might be already, to be fair.
Yeah. It's when those coppers came into my office in Belfast, they were like, "Is this your name? Is this your date of birth? Do you live at this address?" And I was like, "I will be leaving now and moving across the border to a whole other ass country. Fuck you."
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Oh, God. I hope our names are touching on the government watch list, babes. I should have got Kev a Valentine's card that said that, really.
Oh my God, what a just beautiful story of resistance. Is there more?
Well, just the fact that obviously the legacy of this rising is seen in just this increased anti-British sentiment. And that really helped to kind of swell a tide that couldn't be turned, and it really did end colonial rule in Ireland. And obviously the leaders of this rebellion are martyrs here. They are venerated to this day. This proclamation of independence, I've got on the back of this shirt today, hangs in most houses in Ireland. That sacrifice is never ever forgotten. And if you can go to Kilmainham Jail, I'll take you to Kilmainham Jail in Dublin.
Oh, wow.
This is where they executed a lot of these leaders. They buried them in a mass grave there. It's also where obviously they had to say goodbye to their loved ones. One of them even got married. Joseph Plunkett married Grace Gifford in jail the night before he knew he was due to be shot in the morning. Just imagine the bravery. Yeah. It's just so inspiring.
It is so inspiring. I wanted to say also, I mean, you have covered this, I think, more detail also over on your Patreon, haven't you? You did actually give a full sort of lesson about it, which I've heard before, and it's so like that. Also, you go a little bit more into sort of the crossovers with Palestine and stuff like that, and I learned a lot also about Palestine through that.
Well, because what it was interesting was obviously this is at the time of World War One. When we look at where soldiers, talking about armed resistance and the need to be armed, well, where are we getting weapons from when we're under kind of military oppression? Stealing them off the soldiers themselves, but also, German arms were imported. But it was pulling on that thread of Irish Republicans who died in the Somme, who weren't even recognised by the British War Graves organisation, society, commemoration, whatever the fuck it is. And then looking at, well, why were we at war? Where are we at war? What were we involved with? And it was me looking at, obviously, the British Empire and the Suez Canal and British influence in Palestine during that time. Why were the British stretched so thin while dealing with this uprising in Ireland? Because they had their sticky, grubby, bloody fingers in so many fucking places they shouldn't have been. And just as we see in the north of Ireland, we are still feeling and living with the repercussions of that today. This has not ended.
Yeah. Do you also sometimes in these kind of conversations, like, sit there and think, like, if somebody had sort of tapped us on the shoulder when you were coming up to me in that AA meeting and telling me that you thought you might be a lesbian, that we'd be, on a Zoom call recording our podcast talking about politics in this way?
No, I didn't. And I have two different moods around that at the moment. I fucking hate it. I hate it. I'm so angry and furious and disappointed to have my version of reality shattered and distorted and taken from me. But I'm also phenomenally fucking grateful and blessed and privileged to know and to not be someone who is going to live my life in the dark.
Completely. And I think anyone that sort of knew me before then would definitely say that I would absolutely not be the person that would be doing this. And I can imagine lots of people that maybe haven't seen me in 10 years listening to it and being like, oh, he's this is a bit of a change, isn't it?
What radicalised you, isn't it? What basic fucking empathy.
That's it, isn't it? Like, I feel like there's a lot of conversations of, like, I'm sort of people saying, well, I'm not political, I'm not going to be able to show up in that way. But it's like, well, are you moral? Because a lot of this is actually more morality than it is politics, I find.
Yeah, but and if we look at someone like Constance Markievicz, she was landed gentry. She was presented to Queen Victoria at court. She's Markievicz because she married some Polish guy who had the correct standing. She was from the kind of Protestant ascendancy, and there's nothing about her that says she would have ended up in a short skirt and tough boots kissing her revolver as she handed it over on capture, but it's because she looked out of her fucking window at people who were starving during the famine, at the violence being meted out on the Irish people by this violent, oppressive government, and was able to say to themselves, quite simply, this is not right, this cannot be correct. And it's that whole, I went to fight for Ireland because I felt that was the right thing to do. And the reason why I draw the comparisons between, Irish republicanism and Palestine is because these are topics where people go, oh, it's complicated, isn't it? Yeah, but it's complicated. It fucking isn't complicated. It's not.
Yeah. It just takes sort of going back in history a little bit and reading some books and having just an ounce of curiosity.
Yeah. And I'm so delighted to get to live in Ireland, in the Republic of Ireland again. And shout out to everyone holding it down in the north of Ireland, keeping the Irish language alive. There's like been over a 200% uptake of Irish language courses at Belfast Queen's University, and I just love it. I just think, because I think Ireland is such an amazing example for us of a people who organised, put many differences aside. They did have a civil war, more on that later, right? Like, had to put differences aside, but they organised and they armed and they actually effectively threw the boot of the British off the neck. And look at the culture that we have in Ireland today.
Yeah, well, it also just goes to show what's possible.
Yeah.
Like, I think it is so easy to sort of lose hope and say, well, it's hopeless, we're doomed. But to be able to look at things like this and be like, well, it's happened. We've had these kind of uprisings in the past.
So
people have said enough.
Watch out, Andrew, because we've built guillotines once and we can do it again.
I mean, just also look to Stonewall, look at the sort of gay rights movement, and ordinary people that stood up and said, no, this is enough. You can't keep treating us like this.
And I think what's really striking for me is this idea of sacrifice. I don't want to get all misty-eyed or romantic. I've said before, I don't think romanticizing struggle is necessarily helpful for those who are actually engaged in it, right? But the reality is that I was on a bus coming from Dublin back up to Belfast one day, and there were two young lads beside us chatting away in Gaelic, in Irish, in Gaeilge the entire way. And for that is resistance. It like, I was really tired and I didn't need to hear people chatting away the entire time, if I'm really honest. But the fact that they were speaking Irish meant I could have listened to them all fucking day long, because the British did absolutely everything they could to take the Irish language off the Irish people. It is a means of subjugating a people, erasing their identity, and still irrepressible in terms of a sense of identity that is more connected to the land, to each other, to culture, than it is to this invading, occupying, oppressive force.
I mean, language is political. I mean, if you look also to sort of like the gay rights movement and them literally inventing their own language so that they could communicate with each other. And I'm being a very bad gay because I can't remember the name of that language right now, but I will remember.
I was looking up this morning, getting ready to record this with you, because I know that obviously you were looking at, we talked about looking at Marsha P and Stonewall, but it's lovely again to have been able to make that connection to Marsha and Munroe today. But I was also thinking about, I saw other people, Stormy. Have you heard about Stormy, the butch lesbian drag king of the East Village? Forgotten stories of Stonewall. So the story goes, when it comes to the first brick, it might have actually been the first shot glass thrown at a mirror, credited to Marsha P. But apparently there was also a butch lesbian who had been who was being harassed by police, because at that time, people labelled as women, were not allowed to wear more than 3 pieces of masculine clothing.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that? Do you remember that? I was like, what the fuck? And apparently it was this butch lesbian shouting, somebody fucking do something, somebody intervene, this is not okay, we're not having this right now, that could have actually been part of the catalyst. And it's believed it might have been Stormy. I think it's Stormy Devil. I'll find out.
Would you like me to speak on my next person?
Fuck yes, absolutely, please do.
It's not so long, but it is somebody that I wanted to sort of mention, because I mean, where is all of this without a clear villain, right? And there would have been no J.K. Rowling without an Anita Bryant. Do you know anything about Anita Bryant?
Anita Bryant. I think Anita Bryant and Wes Streeting are cut from the same cloth, right?
Yes.
She was vile, but tell me.
So Anita Bryant was a popular singer and model in the 1970s. In 1977, she began to lead the Save Our Children campaign in Miami to repeal a local ordinance prohibiting discrimination based on sexual orientation. She was all over the media at the time, framing gay people as a menace to society. Like Margaret Thatcher, she invoked traditional family values and cast queer people as harmful to children. It feels very similar to Joanne Rowling. She says that she loves gay people but hates the sin. So much like J.K. Rowling, who famously began by saying she would fight for trans people if she felt that they were being discriminated against, and that she was just asking questions. So Bryant famously said, homosexuals cannot reproduce, so they must recruit. That line is something that really helped kind of lay the groundwork for many anti-queer talking points in the future. You know, we still hear a lot of this today, and it does just create an atmosphere of fear and scapegoating. So obviously we're here at the moment with the transgender community. You know, this is something that they laid the groundwork for back then, very much going after sort of the gay community. But the reason I sort of really wanted to talk about this is just because of how iconic the gay community was in its response to this. So I want to walk through some of the actions taken against Bryant in retaliation for her hate mongering.
Yes.
So Anita's biggest campaign and earner was as the spokesperson and the face of Florida orange juice. Gay bars across the country served a cocktail called the Anita, which is a screwdriver with apple juice instead of orange.
If they didn't call it Anita drink.
Oh my God, yes! Exactly, they really missed a beat there.
Excuse me, barkeep, Anita drink.
I think it was actually called the Anita Bryant, but the drink became a symbol of defiance and solidarity during a pivotal era of LGBTQ plus activism. Her campaign slogan was, "A day without orange juice is like a day without sunshine," and it was co-opted and changed to "A day without lesbians is like a day without sunshine."
Absolutely, hard agree. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly. I couldn't.
Can we do an
more.
entire episode on how lesbians have low-key been at the base of every single meaningful act of?
Well, I mean, you know, just the way that they really fronted the ACT UP
Yes.
Sort of resistance to what was going on with the AIDS epidemic, and they were the people that were at the bedsides and those that were standing up loudly for, you know, getting the sort of medical help that was needed at that time. It was such an awful time, and lesbians really were at the forefront of that. These sort of iconic signs, without lesbians is like a day without sunshine, appeared everywhere at pride parades and remain a staple today, and they are some of my favorites to see at a pride parade.
Should we make one?
Oh my God.
Should we do our first podcast t-shirt and it will be a quote, "A day without lesbians is like a day without sunshine."
Yes.
Tommy and Hannah.
I mean, it's just such an iconic quote. But my favorite moment was when activist Tom Higgins shoved a cream pie into her face during a television appearance. Like something out of a John Waters film, she looked at the camera and said, "At least it's a fruit pie." That moment cemented her as a desperately uncool figure and positioned her as the opposite of anything progressive, a pattern I think we're starting to see with J.K. Rowling. But, you know, like...
It's not a pie I'd hit her in the face with at this point, though.
Yeah. Well, that's it. But I think just like these sort of iconic moments in history where people are just put in their place in such a way, and in it just being like such a camp moment as well, and such a sort of time where it's like, you know, that it's not been on Drag Race, you know, that it's not been in a Snatch Game or something, is just astonishing because it's such a moment.
How has no one done Anita Bryant on Snatch Game?
Well, yeah, exactly.
That's
exactly.
Crazy. I bet it's been done to death in the real drag clubs. And when I say the real drag clubs, I mean where the real drag happens.
Certainly
I think, yeah, we could go off on all sorts of wild tangents here, but is Drag Race real drag anymore? It's a big question. I don't know if I enjoy it as much as I used to.
Well, it's all gotten very, very samey and boring, hasn't it? Like, there's not been anyone that's excited me.
Well, it's all of the encouragement of drama and catty infighting and kind of The good reality TV versus the actual community camaraderie, that the spirit and the energy, I guess, of that New York ballroom that RuPaul was in, that it wanted to kind of capture and emulate. And, you know, I'd love to have seen those people get paid, like actually paid. So
Yeah, no, absolutely. So just to sort of wrap up on this, so activists also aimed to hurt her financially, and she lost her contract with Florida Citrus Commission in 1980.
I mean, the fact that there was even a Florida Citrus Commission, we just know it was different times.
Right,
it was different
right,
times,
exactly,
different times,
exactly.
To be alive.
So, you know, just to say, like, never underestimate the pink pound.
No.
The controversy contributed to the end of her marriage and to multiple bankruptcies that followed.
Good.
And finally, in 2021, her granddaughter came out as bisexual and married a woman. A ceremony that Bryant reportedly did not
I just
attend.
love how much you love that. I just love how much
I fucking love it.
And her daughter came out as bisexual. And not only was she bisexual, she married a fucking woman. So, yeah, she wasn't very happy about that.
Didn't love that.
Wasn't very happy.
So there you are. That's Anita Bryant.
Is she dead?
She's dead.
Good.
Yeah. I think she didn't die that long after her daughter married that woman. Actually.
I'm glad she lived to see the happy day.
Me too. Me too.
Well, I think we should probably close things up a little bit, like I said, because I keep thinking
Yeah.
about my husband and the fact that he disappears for like 2 days of the week now in an effort to try and edit this into...
Oh, bless him.
I know. But it was Kev who suggested actually that we should think about closing up each episode with a little bit of what we've been doing to cope. Right, because we essentially have started this podcast acknowledging that this seems like a very tough time to be alive. That as kind of white people with a load of privilege, we've got a lot to unpack, and we can kind of do that together and bring people with us. We hope, making mistakes and fucking it up, and learning as we go. You know. So, but what have we been doing in the midst of it all? What have you been listening to? Is that Vinted for me, right? So I don't doom scroll Instagram very much anymore. I don't spend a lot of time there because, well, we know why. But I've gotten really into Vinted, and their algorithm it's a fresh kind of evil. Because you can go shopping for shit, but it's other people's secondhand shit. So it feels like way more sustainable, and it feels way more, and then you're like, yeah, but am I still trying to order little treats every day? Right, something I have to get much better at is the like not spending money so I can feel something that is so pervasive for us under capitalism. But yeah, so scrolling Vinted has been a coping mechanism of mine, healthy or otherwise, this week.
So I've booked my stomach tattoo with Moira Ramone that I'm having in a few days in the Netherlands, which is fab. But also, I've really taken to watching like real nutters on YouTube. Like, there's these two women, it's a mother and daughter, and they claim to be channeling some sort of angelic presence. It's very convincing though, and like I don't actually know how I feel either way. But like the mother will sort of have these, you know, channeling moments where she's talking about various different sort of environmental issues and stuff like that, and the daughter is going like this, she's like waving her arms around going, it's true, and I'm obsessed with this.
I mean, that sounds,
watch it all day
that
at work.
sounds a little bit like me when I go down the old Psychic Detectives channel on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
one of my favorite things is to watch those programs, so kind of like the late 90s, early 2000s, where they're like, detectives were completely stuck, so they called in a psychic, and the psychic told them that they were buried over here, which was not where they were buried.
God, yeah,
it's absolutely not where they were, but we've somehow still managed to make an entire episode of TV about it. All of that, absolutely. 48 Hours. I watch a lot of 48 Hours crime TV, but I've also started to wonder why it is that women especially, watch so much true crime when it really is just the stories of men murdering their girlfriends, their wives, their exes.
it's a safety thing.
Yeah,
isn't
it is. It's like a reassuring kind of depressing. So, you're not crazy. They do kill us. Fucking hell. Okay, well. Thanks for listening. We would so appreciate it if you would sign up to our Patreon. Because if you sign up as a free member, we can let you know when we're releasing episodes. We can ask you what kind of stuff you would like for us to talk about in our effort to kind of keep you company in the midst of the chaos. Right now, if you can afford to chuck us a few quid, we'd appreciate it, because we went all in with these really snazzy microphones and mic arms and
We've got to do it now.
And it actually takes quite a lot of time, it turns out, to do a weekly podcast. I just want to do a shout out to everybody doing a podcast. If you were thinking of doing a podcast, you should start one. In fact, we have something coming up for Patreon subscribers that might give you a hand or encourage you.
Yes.
So more on that later. Anything you want to add, Tommy V?
I can't think of anything. I mean, we have been rambling on, haven't we? But this has been so much fun.
I love it. I'm rejuvenated. I live.
Yeah.
Fucking eat a Brian. Let's go Munroe Bergdorf.
Yes. Thank you so much for tuning in again to what is still currently called Tommy and Hannah. You can follow us on Patreon under Tommy and Hannah. If you've got any further questions for us, because we're going to keep doing the agony gunkling, there is a form in the Patreon, so we'll catch you there. Thank you so much again. Bye.